this is my first week of lectures, and I'm going to talk about the theories of supervision in early childhood programs. I am trying something a little bit new, so it's going to be a Zoom video where I share the screen. So you will see my little face. All right, let me go back. So you'll see my face while I'm kind of lecturing straight out. Before I kind of did some PowerPoints where I would narrate it, and I could come in and I could change the PowerPoints as I wanted to, or as things changed. But right now, I'm trying something a little bit new this semester, so I'm taking my PowerPoints and I'm now going to kind of lecture them with my little face up in the corner as I go along. So this is something new. After a couple weeks, you guys who have taken previous classes with me, please share if you like this format or not. Another thing I was thinking with this format, since I am kind of doing it not in real time, but I am recording these just a couple of days before the next week starts. If you wanted to, by email, if you had any questions about this class or scenarios or issues in your own professional life that you wanted to bring to me by email, maybe I could try to address them at the end of these kind of video lectures, let's say. So if you had issues relating to supervision in early childhood programs, so kind of less child issues, and more like my team's not working well, or I'm a new supervisor, I'm struggling with people taking me seriously, or how do I become a supervisor, or what are the benefits of being a mentor teacher, you know, stuff like that that have to relate to the content of the class. If you wanted to email me, maybe I could take some time at the end of my lectures and address some of those concerns that you have if you want to bring them to me. So I'm really interested in trying new technology ideas and things like this. So this is a new way that I'm trying to be a little bit more dynamic online. But today, and I apologize, I have a bit of a cold. So what we're going to talk about today are the theories of management and supervision. What are the differences between management and supervision? And kind of this, it's a little bit theoretical today, but it's going to take these ideas of how we manage and how we supervise. It's going to inform the rest of the class and what we learn in the class, and all the different ways that we talk about personnel, we talk about finances, all those types of things are going to kind of lead back into these theories of how we manage and supervise other people. We're also going to kind of reframe how we talk about communication, and most of our child development classes there towards how you speak to parents, families, and the community, and this is more in-house. How do you talk to your staff members, fellow teachers? How are you an effective communicator as a supervisor? And then we'll talk a little bit about the process of decision making as well, but all of these issues are things we'll talk about later in the class. This is just kind of the foundation of it. So why are theories important? So you've taken some child development classes already. You know Vygotsky, Piaget, Gardner, Erickson, and they are stage theorists, or they have theories about how children learn. We also are going to take the theories of management and supervision and then apply it to our field of child development. So for a lot of these people, we are taking things that other people have done either in the financial sector or management sector, and we're applying it specifically to the field of child development. So some of the people that I talk about might not even be child development people, and especially in your group projects, you might want to learn from other kind of theorists in management sector or personnel sector or human resources sector, and then apply it to the work that you do either in a corporate preschool, in your own FCC home, or in like a small church preschool. A lot of these theories can be applied to any type of management that we do. If it's very small, if it's very large, it really doesn't matter. The only kind of child development theory that I will kind of talk about is that the kind of idea of a theory is that it's just a set of ideas or concepts or principles that we try to organize as much as possible. So when you look at Erickson or Piaget, they're stage theorists, they're looking at how children develop through their lifespan, either socially, emotionally, or cognitive. They build on one another in order to get to a set place where children are going, and it's a unified set of theories about how children learn. So I'm not really covering the child development part of that. Your previous classes, your professional experience has really prepared you for that, and you should know developmental theory on your own. This class obviously is for supervising and running your own classroom or running your own center. But as supervisors and directors, we typically pick a child development theory to inform the practice of our school. So it's kind of a theory or a theoretical idea of how children learn, and that kind of informs your vision of what your childhood center looks like. And once again, it doesn't matter how big or how small. Even if you only have 4 children in your home daycare, you still have an idea of how you want children to learn. So for example, when I was a director, because I am no longer, I've been out of the field a couple of years, I provided play-based programs with a strong basis in Reggio and ecological theories. And that was my Vygotsky and my Brockenbrenner. I believed that children learned by interacting with their world, their languages, and their own culture in a supportive preschool environment. So that was kind of the theories that I picked from child development, and that informed my vision of my school on how it should have been run. So right now we're going to jump into the theories behind supervision and management. These terms, supervision and management, are often used interchangeably, but they really are different topics. But a strong program and a strong leader, which you guys are, is going to be strong in both of those. So you're really striving for both. You want to be a strong manager and you want to be a strong supervisor. So management is the planning and control of the work process. Managers have a significant external focus. So they're making sure that when parents enter into your city, into your center or your house, that everything has been planned and the workflow works really nicely. They know where to go, they know where to put everything, they know what the vision of the center is. They've just been well informed so that it works well for the families who use our center. A supervisor is more kind of focused on the people at work. So in this case, your teachers and your support staff. So you're giving employees specific instructions on what is ordered to be done, and you're taking the policies and procedures that the manager has come up with, or if you're both, that you've come up with in your managerial role, you've taken those policies and procedures, and you're making sure and you're monitoring that they are being done. So a supervisor is a little bit more internally focused because it's your responsibility as a supervisor to make sure that the manager's decisions and policies and procedures are being implemented by the staff. So a management theory, though, is really just, like I said, it's an organized set of ideas, concepts, and principles, but this one specifically is for the process of managing a program. So kind of that external focus that everything runs well. So when anybody enters into the program, they know what their role or responsibility is, the parents know where they go, the children know that there's a really strong routine in the classroom, there are just no surprises like that. So they're looking at the program as a whole to make sure that it runs really well. And typically, if you are a manager, you're writing policies, procedures, and handouts and things like that in order to make sure that these things run as they're supposed to. It's also your job, and most times we're both a manager and a supervisor. You are making sure that your goals are being met. So children are being supervised, there's enough educational experiences, there's enough materials in order to provide those educational experiences, staff are paid, the lights remain on, stuff like that. Then the supervisor implements the program. So they take the policies and procedures and they walk through it with the staff, they train the staff on it, and then through supervision, they assess the implementation. So for an example, I have an example of management and supervision, and this goes with what I've been talking about. So the manager is going to give us the policy, and this is super, super easy. I wanted to pick something that we all agree on, that the policy is that children are supervised. And this comes from licensing, who has very, very strict policies when it comes to supervision, depending on which ratios you should be. If you're state funded or if you're a private enterprise, which ratios you should be following. So the policies that children are to be supervised properly, and teachers follow ratios at all times. Sounds simple. This is probably one of the most difficult things in our field, is making sure that we have our ratios and they're implemented, the 12 hours that we were made over, or something like that. Okay, so then the information about ratios and how they implemented are given and explained to all of the staff, and then the supervisor observes to make sure that it is being implemented. So we've had a staff meeting, we've told everybody, we're going state funded, our ratios are changing, this is what our ratios are. We go over breaks, we go over toileting, we go over all those sticky issues, playground supervision, where we know that it's really difficult to remain in our ratios, or when we're transitioning, things like that. So we've discussed all of those things. The manager has given us very clear policies and procedures about when we do all of these things, and then the supervisor is going to observe in the classroom to make sure that it's implemented. So that's just an example of kind of how a management and supervision work together as a whole, because like I said, we're typically both. I did want to talk about one thing though with the management process, because it touches on something I talked about last week, and that's, I know my floating head is in the way, but it's total quality management. And as I said, I alluded to this in last week's weekly assignment, but really what it is we're striving for continuous improvement. So I asked you to kind of do your personal leadership mission statement, and the article said it's not something that you're ever really going to achieve. We're not going to have total perfection because we work with young children who are sometimes irrational or too energetic, and we also work with human beings who are staff members. And so anything that human beings touch really can't ever be perfect. Probably nothing in this world can be perfect, but we're always striving for continuous improvement. So at the end of these 16 weeks, you're never going to want to hear me say vision again, but really what it is you have this vision of how your early childhood education program, no matter what it is run, and you're striving for continuous improvement. So in this type of thing, you're looking at your management process, your workforce who works for you, how you manage them, so how you make decisions about them. You're checking on them, you're assessing them, you're making sure that it's organized and well run, and then you're analyzing it to see where other changes can be made. What I really like this is that the responsibility is shared. So it's not just the director, the assistant director, the mentors. Everybody buys into this idea of quality education for young children, be it Reggio, academic. I don't care what kind of program you run, as long as you run it well and it's based on developmentally appropriate practice. You can choose to run whatever kind of program you want, Montessori, Waldorf, that matters very little to me. I just want to make sure that the staff members that you hire buy into your shared vision, and everybody is kind of committed to this vision and strive to implement it to the best of their ability every day. And that's why I like this total quality management is, I think that's how we run educational programs, is by having somebody buy into your vision of education. Another management process, and once again, this doesn't even come from child development. This is coming from a food service organization. And it's Pearson, you can look it up. This comes from an image on Google. But this is a management process that most places use, and we're just going to tailor it to the child development field. So a process is really like there's a bunch of resources, and they're integrated into a system. And so our resource is that we provide supervision for children. How we accomplish our objective of having ratios and good supervision and good educational experience for children involves planning. So the manager is planning the program. The teachers are planning by doing lesson planning every week. We're organizing, making sure that we have everything, that we can grab it easily, both in the classroom and as a manager or a supervisor. We're staffing, making sure that we have the staff available in order to provide the ratios, and in order we have enough staff to watch all of the children so that we're safe. And then also from a financial consideration, that we're providing enough services to families that they pay us for, so we can continue to bring in revenue in order to keep the lights on in our center. And then leading. So this is kind of that supervision and leadership that I will kind of refer to is our vision of our program. How do we get there? What goals have we set for our program? And then the last one is controlling. A lot of times in this kind of field, we do control. We need to control that education the children receives is developmentally appropriate and that they are adequately supervised. But we typically in this field do it by monitoring and assessing staff members. So by evaluations or observations, we're assessing and monitoring that the classrooms are implementing our policies and procedures correctly. I know I'm talking a lot and I'm giving you a lot, but what I'm kind of doing is I'm giving you the theoretical underpinning for the rest of the class. So as we're going through this kind of fast, what this really is telling you what we're going to be learning about step by step together over the next 15 weeks. So don't stress that you need to remember this. Oh my God, I don't know what a management process is. This is just the idea of us working as managers and supervisors in order to provide really quality educational experiences for children. We are going to jump into communication and decision making because this is an area where we might have to kind of reframe what we've kind of learned in our child development classes and have more of an external focus. So for communication is, it's coming from our leadership. a lot of times. So maybe we are the director, but we're not the owner. So we're getting communication from the owner. Maybe as the director, we're giving it to our assistant director. Maybe the board of directors for large corporate centers are giving it to us. And then we are also doing it to our staff, our support staff, our teaching staff, our administrative staff. So it's kind of this back and forth between people who are above us, people who are underneath us within our supervisory scale. So there's different types of communication. So before we kind of, if in child development classes, we talked about how as teachers and supervisors, we communicate with parents. And we will talk about upset parents, helping parents that are going through stressful situations or considered underserved or at risk. We will cover that. That's important. But a lot of this class is going to be about your staff communication. So how you communicate to your staff members, how you can be a better communicator to your staff members, so that everybody who works for you understands what you're trying to say. And then also how they can communicate with you in order to have a really good workplace where everybody feels that their concerns are being heard. So it's kind of how to have open communication, and then kind of this process of decision making, which involves a lot of communication. And being a communicator and being a decision maker and remaining a leader, because sometimes you do have to make those hard decisions that a lot of people might not agree with. But if you have a strong basis in communication, then hopefully, and you have kind of that trust level, hopefully people will go along with these hard decisions that inevitably you're going to have to. And then how we communicate is a lot of times interrelated with how we make decisions. So who we are as a communicator also affects who we are as a decision maker. So communication, and I found this online, is it's really important for employees. And I know a lot of you are teachers and a lot of you are directors, so I'm speaking to both of you. So even if you are a teacher who's wanting to be a director, or you want to be a mentor teacher, or you're just going to be helping out by closing at the end of the day or opening up a smaller center during the day, and you need this class as far as licensing, being able to communicate with the people that you are supervising is really, really important. So just 15 minutes, or even each week they say, but sometimes it's daily. I'm a big proponent of walking through your classrooms every day, checking in with people, saying hi, how are you, or walking through the break room, just kind of having that personal touch with people, because we found that with open communication, where they feel like they're being respected and people listen to them, that a lot of times people appreciate that more than like a health plan or like a great food cafeteria or something like that. So that's one of the perks that employees have said that they appreciate most, is being heard and being valued. So you as a leader or as a supervisor are setting the climate for a program. So it needs to be respectful, so you have respectful communication, and it's somewhere where you have open communication between directors and staff. Some of your staff members are going to talk a lot to you. You'll know everything about their lives and about every single child in the classroom. Some people may not be as open about their personal lives, and that's totally fine, but you do want open communication about what's going on in the classroom. So if there are real immediate concerns or just kind of simmering concerns about maybe a child's development or behavior, you're most likely going to want to remain apprised of that, so that you can support them in the classroom, you can support the child, and you possibly getting additional services for that child as well. There's also another type of communication, and this kind of goes along with our reframing, is upward communication. So before it was just one-on-one communication. So what you were doing was you were speaking to a parent, either because they had concerns or it's just a normal drop-off and pick-up, and that's kind of just a back and forth type of communication. There's also upward communication, and it's how your staff, so this is tailored to people who want to be supervisors. So even if you have one staff member or you have 50 staff members, this is the idea of how they supervise, how they communicate with you as their supervisor or their manager. Typically through staff meetings, most programs have quarterly or monthly staff meetings. A lot of times we give parents suggestion boxes, but in the past I've also, at very large centers where we had 40 to 80 staff members, we also had suggestion boxes as well. And I found this was really helpful. It was outside of our resource closet, so where we kept things. So if I was missing something or I needed to buy something, that's typically what went in that box. There's the open door policy. And we'll talk more about that when you're available to staff and when you're not available to staff. It's typically very personal, but you're always available for immediate concerns or emergencies. But other times you might have a shut door if you need to, take care of other paperwork necessary for running a program. Review and feedback, typically during evaluations and things like that. Questionnaires and surveys, I'll give you more resources on this as we go on, ways that you can survey your staff to see what areas of improvement you can make. Quality circles, this is kind of like the talking stick where you put it around and everybody kind of, it's a little bit more than that, but kind of having open communication when it comes to quality issues. Reports, then there's the grapevine, never a good way. That's a poor one. A lot of times that's how rumors start, as Jolie said, that ratios should never be followed. All of a sudden you're like, wait, I've never said that, because it's gone through the grapevine and people have misheard or they've heard what they wanted to. Interviews, this is typically with your evaluation process as well. We are going to talk about having a grievance procedure. So if you have employees in the process of being terminated or they have a specific grievance, how they can bring that to you. That's a big part of this class that we'll talk about later. And then counseling services that we can provide for our employees as well, and then committees. A lot of our field work doesn't have to do with the committees, but I have seen it more in very large centers that are 250 to 350 students. That's a lot of times in our military systems, or sometimes even some of our employee-sponsored corporate care. They can have incredible amounts of oversight from the government or from a corporate leader, and they also will have committees for their employees and committees for their parents in order to oversee certain groups because there's such a large amount of children, and with 350 staff members, that's 80 to 90 employees that you have, so it's much bigger care. So we'll talk about very large centers, and we'll also talk about very small FCC providers because they are just as valuable and just as important in our field. But those are some of the ways that staff communicates with supervisor. You're not going to do all of these. That would be almost impossible, but you're going to pick a few that you're going to really commit to, and that's how people know that they communicate with you as a leader. And then decision-making as well. So I do want to talk a little bit about the decision-making process because a lot of this has to do with how you are as a communicator, which communication process you've kind of chosen. And once again, this is something that we'll talk more about. This is just the theory of it, the idea of it, and then we'll go more. This class is very practical. We'll go more into this as the class goes along. But we're really looking at a problem. So for example, I want to stay with the same problem or the same example for this lecture, so it would be ratios. So the problem is that ratios are difficult to keep up with during transitions. So then we're going to develop alternative solutions, and this would be the time and place where you would really want to get the feedback of your staff. So, when I was a director, I had some classroom responsibility. I did a lot of breaks sometimes, or I was the person who observed all of the staff members and the children. When I was on Camp Pendleton, I was a training and curriculum specialist. I had 40 staff members, and then there was an assistant director and a director who took care of more of the managerial roles, and I did a lot of the supervisory. So I was the one who assessed all of the teachers, and I helped with challenging and special needs behaviors as well. So I was in all of the classrooms. So this is where when we were having issues during transitions, going in and out of the classroom or in and out of different activities, this is where you're going to involve your staff member in alternative solutions because maybe they know this is the child that I'm having an issue with. This is the staff member that I'm having, they're going to be able to tell you some alternative solutions. Then you're going to evaluate it. So maybe you'll have 4 or 5 different solutions. We're going to change the schedule. We're going to change the routine. We're going to move children from different classrooms, all that different ways. Then you're going to evaluate. Are you going to do all of them? Probably not. Are you going to do a few of them? Maybe. Then this is typically where, as a leader and a manager, you're going to do it yourself. You're going to select the best solution. Sometimes it can be consensus or by voting, but a lot of times you've involved them in the developing of alternative solutions or even evaluating which one makes the most sense to you. But as a leader and a manager, you're choosing the best solution, and then your manager is going to implement that decision. So you might, as a manager is going to select the best solution, and then a supervisor is going to implement that decision. A manager and a supervisor, if you're the same person or if you're 2 different people, You'll typically tell your staff about it at the same time. You know, you'll say, you know, we've chosen to change our schedule for eating, sleeping, and napping. And you're going to do this during classroom meetings over our period of 2 weeks. And then the follow-up is done by the supervisor, who's going to assess and observe the classrooms to make sure that the ratios are being implemented and the best solution is going forward and being implemented as well. So once again, I'm going to go over that real fast in case I was talking a little bit too fast, but defining and analyzing the problem would be ratios. Develop, and that during transitions, they're difficult. Developing alternative solutions is when you talk to your staff members about it. Evaluation of the alternative solutions is done typically by a management or supervisory team. You might even involve your team members at that point. The manager is going to select the best solution. The supervisor is going to implement the decision, and then you'll follow up to make sure that it's being done. When I talk about the manager or the supervisor, I know that for many of you, that's the same person. All of these decisions, especially if you're the owner operator, all come down to you. So each week I typically give more information about the online assignments in these videos. I'll give you an example, or I'll talk more in depth about it. I try to have very specific written instructions on Canvas as well. So when you go into the online assignment, there's typically a paragraph or 2 paragraphs or a video or a picture or something like that to explain more to you about the online assignment. But each week I try to give more verbal instructions about it in these PowerPoints. So and this week we're talking about what communicator you are. So you were talking about kind of your vision of how you are as a leader last week. Now we're talking about what kind of communicator you are. So I have an image in the assignment, and it's to determine, you're going to find 2 ways that you think you are a good communicator. So in that picture, they have lots of different ways to communicate. And you're going to pick 2 ways that you know that you're really strong in, and then another 2 ways of areas that you're vulnerable at or you want to work more on. So these are really just so that you can pick goals that you want to make and reflect on your own practice as a teacher or as a manager or as a supervisor in order to see which areas of communication do I need to work on throughout in my practice, in my professional life, and then in this class as well, so that I can be a really strong communicator for my staff members. And then I just wanted to touch on the group project as well. So this is the kind of day that this week I've opened up your group projects. And so for this week, our discussion boards are going to be group discussions. So we won't have one as a whole class. We'll have them in our discussion, in our home pages for each group project. We will have a discussion board that I've already started for you guys, where hopefully we'll learn a little bit about each other and we can start to kind of explore these areas together. Once again, this is due at the end of May, or it's due mid-May. So we have lots and lots of weeks in order to explore this. These first couple weeks are just for us to get an idea of the 4 areas that I've chosen. And I've chosen your groups as well because that's easier in an online situation. We have reflective leadership, we have organizational management, personnel management, and then community and family engagement. And really none of these are specific to child development. Maybe you will find resources, especially in community and family engagement, that have to do with the child care field and how we are going to implement these theories into that practice. But reflective leadership and management, and then organizational management and personal management are not specific to our field at all. They go over all industries in all sectors. And really what I'm expecting is that you're taking these theories of management that I've introduced today, these theories of decision-making and communication, and you'll apply it to some of these areas. So, for example, for reflective leadership, and it's also known as reflective management, it really has to do with a lot of decision-making and communication. So does organization as well. So the processes in which you organize or you manage people have to do with organizational management, personnel management as well. This is more the human, the HR part of it. So making sure as a manager that you have a lot of policies and procedures that then your supervisor makes sure that are implemented and assessed correctly. So we've gone through a lot of theoretical background today, and then we'll just make sure that as we go through and we work through this process together, it will make us stronger leaders. So getting the underpinning of supervision and communication, decision-making, and then processes of management are going to make us stronger leaders, and that's what we're going to work through together over these next couple of years. So that's it. I've gone over the online assignment. I've gone over that we'll have in-group discussions this week. So I will see you guys in the discussion boards in each of the 4 groups. We'll be talking about all of these areas and some of these theories and things like that. And then just also make sure that you do your online weekly assignment this week, which is about communication and communication skills that we can work on when we're working with fellow teachers or staff members. Thanks so much. Bye.